I'm just sitting here watching Gilmore Girls, and can we just talk about how weird it is that there's this trope in it of these two very skinny people loving to eat and how they eat so much. It gives us this mentality that like you need to love food, you need to eat a lot of food to be quirky and fun. But then if you're not super skinny then and you eat a lot of food, people judge you for being fat.
Welcome to my dissertation. I received so many comments of you asking me to look at the diet from the Gilmore Girls, how it affected you while watching it. And you know, it's overdue. This is not a commentary channel. It was never supposed to be a commentary channel. But when you asked me to review this, I decided to go watch the show. So I spent 2 months watching the Gilmore Girls, all the 7 seasons and the Netflix revival. And there's just so much to talk about. To be honest, I had to tell myself to stop researching so much about this because I kept finding new things to include, new things to mention, and we just can't. This is already going to be a way too in-depth video about this. Grab something to drink because we're going to go deep into the rabbit hole and you're going to come with me. I obviously need to mention that this video is for entertainment purposes only, and all the things that I'm going to talk about are theories, thoughts, opinions, speculations from my side, and they don't reflect the opinion of the writers, the actors, or anyone involved with the Gilmore Girls show, because obviously I don't know any of them. Also, I am very well aware that the Gilmore Girls are fictional characters, of course. There's also going to be spoilers, so if you haven't watched the show yet and you don't want to be spoiled, then save this video for later and come back once you have finished the series. Keep watching because I will be trying the real-life diet of Lauren Graham later on in the video. I think we're all set. Let's go. La, 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 la. So if you're one of the people that hasn't watched the show but doesn't really care about being spoiled and you're still watching the video, I'll give you the basic premise of the show so you don't feel completely lost. Lorelai Gilmore, she has this complicated relationship with her parents. She got pregnant at 16 with her daughter that she named after herself, so she's also called Lorelai, but they call her Rory so that it's not confusing. The first episode we see is when Rory is 16 years old. That's where the show starts. So because they're only 16 years apart, there's this theme of Lorelai, she's very young, but she's a mom, and Rory, she's obviously her daughter, but they are both very pretty, very thin. They have blue eyes, which apparently can get you out of any consequences of any situations. So they're pretty much introduced as being young and pretty and hot, I guess.
I was just
getting to know my daughter.
Wow. You do not look old enough to have a daughter. And you do not look like a daughter. You know, I am traveling with a friend.
She's 16.
Bye.
Drive safe.
So from the first episode, we learned a few things from them. We learned that they really love to eat. They really love coffee. Lorelai's addicted to coffee.
Please, Luke. Please, please, please.
How many cups have you had this morning?
None.
Plus?
5, but yours is better.
You have a problem.
Yes, I do.
And they speak very fast, probably because of the coffee, and they make a lot of jokes with references that I just don't understand 90% of the time. La la, la la. In 2012, Gillian Flynn coined the cool girl trope in her bestseller novel Gone Girl, which was then adapted to film. The cool girl is usually defined as a girl who has typical masculine traits, like enjoying to watch sports and drinking beer. But the cool girl is still exceptionally attractive, however.
I drank canned beer watching Adam Sandler movies. I ate cold pizza and remained a size 2.
Most importantly, she's not emotionally needy, she doesn't eat salads or spend hours putting on makeup or doing her hair, because that's what other girls do. And she's not like other girls, she's a cool girl. So how does this translate to the Gilmore Girls? First, they eat as much or more than the men in the series, and this is emphasized not only by themselves saying that, but by the male characters acknowledging that and out loud saying that multiple times over the series.
Ooh, ice cream! Oh, I'm right behind you.
How could they possibly eat more?
Kind of surprised.
I know, they're bottomless pits.
Even though they eat more than the men, they still look hot and they are still thin and pretty. And even some of the characters come up to them and comment on how they look too skinny.
Oh, you're too thin as always. But we eat. And you're both too beautiful.
Yes, that's true. We often feel guilty monopolizing the amount of beauty we're in possession of.
So it's like this miracle of they can eat so much, but they never gain any weight. They boast about their miracle metabolisms all the time. And they even, like, there's so many comments through the show that say that they should be studied because they eat so much and they never gain any weight. So it's like this mystical thing that they have.
There's nothing in here but ice cream, candy bars, cookie dough, canned frosting. Why are you not 450 pounds?
I know, scientists call it the Lorelei paradox.
On top of that, they look down on other characters that exercise and diet, because obviously that goes against the main premise of being the cool girl, which is to look effortlessly hot. So we have Michelle, and Michelle throughout the series has these running gags that he's always on a diet or is very concerned about his weight and about exercising and being on diet.
Michelle wanted an egg white omelet.
Yes.
Crazy man.
Why? Why am I a crazy man? But I can't eat like that and look like her.
Oh, you don't know what you're missing.
Someday this will all catch up to you.
Maybe this is a way to make his character look more petty because he's a very arrogant, hilarious character. But it can also be a contrast of he tries, but you know, they don't even have to try. Like, they just look good as him, but they don't have to diet. They can eat whatever they want. They pretty much defy the first law of thermodynamics.
In this house, we obey the laws of thermodynamics.
There are several other jokes throughout the show about characters that exercise and that they look a little bit down on. One that jumps to mind is Rory's roommate from Yale that got into the university with an athlete's scholarship. So obviously she's athletic, she likes to run, she likes to exercise. And for some reason that becomes a big inconvenience in their flat.
A trampoline, that's new. Helps with my shin splints. Huh. Wow.
The desire to put on nylon shorts and run in circles for an hour like a greyhound is selfish. You're on steroids, aren't you? That's what's behind this obsessive behavior.
But equally, it's interesting to note that in Stars Hollow, most of the residents are quite diverse in body shapes and sizes. So definitely giving credit where credit is due. It's actually quite refreshing for a show of its time to see such a broad range of body shapes and sizes and diversity in this aspect, because in many other shows, almost everyone is a model. Suki is my favorite character in the show. She's played by Melissa McCarthy, and it's unfortunate to say this, but her character was actually a pretty big step in terms of television. Obviously, she was overweight when she was cast, and although her weight changes over the seasons, it was never a plot point. They never commented on it. And again, it's very sad to be saying this, but for the time, that was a really big deal. Because at the time, fat shaming and fat phobia and being skinny was the rage. Her character has the best relationship with food probably in the whole show. We rarely see her eat, but she's a chef and her kitchen always looks beautiful, full of colors, different ingredients. She talks about food in a beautiful way. She talks about the smells, the flavor, and in the middle of all the other characters, it's really refreshing to see her have like this passionate, beautiful relationship with food. She's married with a produce guy. But it's interesting to see how the Gilmore Girls can be friends with people who are not conventionally model-esque and absolutely not comment on their appearance. But every time there's a new character that comes in that's not part of their circle, then their appearance becomes fair game. Like that famous episode where Rory goes to see a ballet and she has to write this article for the newspaper of the school, which everyone's going to read. And she decides to write about the ballerina's body.
The roll around the bra strap?
That was your line.
It was? I'm awful. I know, but it sounds like she couldn't fit into a standard leotard.
She couldn't.
Do I see the word hippo coming up?
How does that not sound like a bad idea from the start? And she faces zero consequences about it.
That wonderful review you wrote on the ballet, it was excellent.
Oh, I especially like the reference to the hippo.
And I know already what you're about to write in the comments. That was the early 2000s. It was a product of the time. I get that. But then how can we explain the Netflix revival from 2016? Because those 4 episodes have more fat shaming and fat phobic comments than the entire original 7 seasons. The episode Summer in particular.
Why, there's old Butterbutt and our good friend Back Fat Pat.
Hey there.
Hey, Pat. Oh, hi, Pat.
Welcome back, Rory.
Oh, I'm not back fat. I mean back Pat.
But then there's also some other woman that walks by.
Oh my God, just go naked.
So it's like everyone's body has a problem except yours. And again, this was in 2016, so how far back are we going to go and say that this is a product of the times? I found this theory on Reddit that compares it to the famous quote from Mean Girls.
Laura, I don't hate you because you're fat. You're fat because I hate you.
And they interpret it in the way that if you're my friend, and you're overweight, then your weight doesn't matter because I like you. But if you're not my friend, then your weight is just something else that I can use to bring you down. Maybe it's a far cry, maybe that's not what the quote meant, but I see how there's a lot of meaning in here.
He's still a playboy, you know. Well, of course you know. That would explain why your weight goes up and down 30 pounds every other month.
Equally, you never see the Gilmore Girls put on makeup, do their hair, struggle to put on clothes, because they don't. They're cool girls. They're effortlessly beautiful and put together. I mean, in Stars Hollow, they're like icons, idols. Everyone thinks they're on this pedestal. But then you have other friends, for example, Paris, when the secret sorority from Chilton, the Puffs, they come to wake Rory up in the middle of the night and take her to school. Lorelai knows about this beforehand, and she tells Rory to put on some makeup. And then when the girls come, she's like pretending to be asleep, but she's not. They take her from bed, and then Paris asks her,
"So, that's how you look when you've just woken up?" Yeah. Nothing in my life is fair.
And between when Lorelai tells her to put on makeup and when she wakes up, we never see her put on makeup. But you see the lip gloss there. It's glossy. We see that. But she never tells that to Paris. So the poor girl is just being left insecure because Rory, the cool girl, cannot show her insecurities because the cool girl is never insecure. There is a deep-rooted meaning between food and the settings in Gilmore Girls. Luke's Diner is a place where people come together, and it's a setting for many conversations that happen in the show. Same as the Friday night dinners where Lorelai and Rory go to visit their grandparents. Many scenes happen around the table where they're sitting down for dinner. For example, the relationship between Suki and Jackson. She's a chef. He's a produce guy. Food is their love language, and I'm here for it. And if you think of these characters, Suki, Jackson, Luke, because they make food, they are seen as nurturing and like they take care of people because they feed them. And I think that's a recurrent theme in the show. Equally, and we're going to talk about this later on in the video, the scenes where the Gilmore Girls introduce fast food to the grandparents, and Emily in particular, are seen as positive bonding experiences where fast food and unhealthy food is the good thing that brings people together versus the healthy food that, for example, Mrs. Kim serves at her house.
Try the tofurkey. Turkey made from tofu.
Oh, we definitely will.
2 seconds later.
You're taking tofurkey?
And some extra napkins to slip the tofurkey into when no one is looking and then toss them away.
Very smart.
I love this topic. Food acting or eat acting is actors eating or pretending to eat on screen. Sometimes giving food to an actor is just something to give them to do in a scene, so they just don't stand there and deliver the lines. If they're eating and speaking, then it feels more natural. In general, food in a scene makes the characters more relatable. Everyone needs to eat. We all eat. Good people eat, bad people eat, no matter where you come from, we all have to eat. So as humans, we naturally relate to people when they're eating. So if you see a bad guy or a bad girl in a movie eating, it takes them off of that space of just being a bad person or being a villain to the realm of, oh, they're bad, but they're also human. So in a way, food, the way someone eats or what they choose to eat, can help tell the story of a character in a movie or a TV show. We see actors eat in movies all the time. Julia Roberts in Eat, Pray, Love, that's seen in Pulp Fiction, Brad Pitt in Ocean's 11, Moneyball, Ocean's 12, Ocean's 13, and Brad Pitt in any of his movies, really. I'm not even exaggerating to the level of which Brad Pitt is considered the ultimate food actor. If you go on the internet, there's mashups and compilations of Brad Pitt eating all over. There's cookbooks with all the meals he's eaten. There's a Brad Pitt eating cult out there. That's all I'm saying. I love food acting. I love seeing food on screen. I love seeing people eat. It gives me a warm, fuzzy feeling. I mean, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes some scenes in movies are meant to be repulsive through food. Remember Matilda? But in general, I love the use of food in movies. I think it really helps tell the story. So just as we spoke about the Gilmore Girls and how food is a pretty central theme in various scenes that they have, food acting should be a pretty big deal, right? That may have been the original intention, However, it went downhill very fast. In the very early scenes, we do get a glimpse of Lorelai eating, now completely ignoring whether they can or cannot eat that much and still look that skinny. It was actually really good to see her character eat and enjoy the food, at least if that's the character's quirk, that they eat a lot, at least make them enjoy the food, so that was actually nice to see. As the seasons progressed, however, my love for food acting got very triggered. There's a food stylist on TikTok that explained how actors really managed to cope with having to do multiple takes while eating on camera.
You were also curious how we shoot scenes where actors actually eat and drink. Well, the secret is, they don't. You'll notice the camera cuts away before the actor swallows, so they can spit. It all feels real and seamless due to the editing. This is because we'll need multiple takes for a shot, and the actors would get sick or full if they actually had to eat every time.
I'm sorry if I just ruined it for you, but for me, I don't even care that it's not real. I don't care if they're chewing it and then spitting it out. If I see a character on screen eating something, at least make it look real. That's all I care about.
Before we knew kind of like what we were dealing with and that we were going to be doing
a lot.
many takes, we dug in, and then you're ill by like the end of the scene. So the behind the scenes was spit buckets, but initially we ate.
So since the actors say that they started using spit buckets, I would expect to have the same outcome as when I see Brad Pitt chewing on something on screen, even though he goes off and spits it into a bucket. However, that's not what happens. Somewhere after season 2, I just saw the decline of the Gilmore Girls food acting, and I just couldn't see it. It's like if you have the habit of observing the extras in the background, like I do. I don't know if that's weird, but you just can't stop. Like you start focusing on that, and then it becomes very annoying very fast. I do, however, realize that I may be the problem and not them, or that would be the case if the Gilmore Girls didn't shove down our throats the idea that they eat so much. They're capable of eating so much, and they're amazing because they can eat so much.
Okay, now practical question. How are we going to eat 4 Thanksgiving dinners?
How? Rory, what are we if not world champion eaters?
Well, that's not what I'm seeing. Most of the times they go into Luke's, order a copious amount of food, get distracted, and go out the door without eating their food. Or they spend the whole scene in front of a plate swirling their fork around the food and never actually taking a bite. Let's just take a look at this one scene that completely infuriated me. Okay, so chocolate sauce and maple syrup, yummy. Let's forward this a bit. Okay, swirl the fork. Oh, no, we're actually not eating yet. Oh, now we're leaving? Okay. Lorelai's licking the finger. Are we going to eat now? We're still talking? Okay. So Lorelai's not even going to eat? Okay. Oh, okay. Yeah, I guess we're not having breakfast then. And that's the end of the scene. And that's exactly what bothers me, is that their character's ability to eat is so overplayed compared to what we actually see. As in, we're told that they eat a lot, but we never see them eating a lot. So it's just really confusing. And this food acting evolution is very important for what we're about to talk next. Is the Gilmore Girls diet realistic? Here's how it could be realistic. They walk around a lot and stay busy. Moving around and just generally being active increases the amount of calories you burn in your day-to-day. If we say that they have a high metabolism and they are very jittery, they could be burning more calories than the rest of us. Exercising does not have to be all about going to the gym. So yes, they could be considered very active. They walk around a lot. But this is a TV show, it's so hard to judge. They have fast metabolisms. We are told the entire length of the show that they have these magical metabolisms that should be studied, which are a phenomenon of nature that no one can explain, and that's why they stay slim. Let's just entertain for a minute the idea that these girls do in fact have a metabolism that just doesn't quit. I think if we look at Rory, I would buy into that. Because Rory is 16 when the show starts. Alexis Bledel is 19 at the time. And throughout the show, she stays pretty much slim. And I think growing up, we must all have met someone like this during our teenage years. They were skinny, they ate everything they wanted, they ate chocolates and snacks and everything, and they stayed slim. That's pretty normal when you're a teenager, because you're growing up and your metabolism is faster than an adult because you're growing and your body's going through all kinds of crazy things. And some people then grow on to be adults and they are able to maintain their faster metabolism for longer than other people. If we look at the revival where Alexis still looks so skinny, I don't believe that she would be able to eat all that junk food up until the age of 40 and stay like that. But in the series, there is a shift somewhere along the later seasons where she steers away a little bit from the junk food. There's an episode where she's cooking. Lorelai could never. And so if that was the case, that she just turned out to be this busy adult that is active, she's tap dancing in the revival, she has a healthy diet, then yeah, for sure, her genetic predisposition might be that she just tends to be on the leaner side. On Lorelai's case, I don't buy it. So in the show, we're told that this magical metabolism, both of them have it. But Lorelai's body is very different from Rory's. She's still slender and thin and gorgeous, but she has an athletic build. When you're skinny because you have a fast metabolism and you don't exercise, you don't have toned arms and legs and a booty. And in Lauren Graham's case, we can see that she clearly exercises a lot. And as well because Lorelai is in her 30s during the show, so by that time, even if you are blessed with a fast metabolism by genetics, somewhere along the mid-20s to 30 mark, that starts to slow down. And that happens to most people. With age, we stop being as active as we were when we were kids. And our body is also no longer running the race to grow and keep a growing body. The way to keep a fast metabolism is through activity levels, staying active, and by not losing muscle. Muscle loss with age is also linked to the decreased level of activity. It is very hard to keep or build muscle even without one, eating a good amount of protein, and two, doing resistance training. I don't believe that Lorelai would look like that, even if she had the fantastic metabolism without staying active and exercising. They drink a lot of coffee. It is known that caffeine increases your resting metabolic rate, which is the number of calories that your body burns just by breathing, existing. And caffeine increases your resting metabolic rate in proportion to how much coffee you drink. There is very limited research on long-term effects of caffeine in weight loss or body weight. A meta-analysis from 2019 reviewed 13 studies and found that the evidence seems to point into the direction that caffeine helps promote weight loss and reduction in BMI and body fat. However, there's a few limitations here because there's very few studies still. Not all the studies are conducted in the same way. So for example, some studies used coffee, some studies used green tea, some used caffeine supplements mixed in with other things. So although it's still caffeine, we're not really comparing apples to apples. So there's more research needed. And there's also not much evidence of the long-term effects. This to say that we cannot know for sure that the reason the Gilmore Girls were that skinny is because they drank coffee every day. Although they do speak very fast and they are very jittery, so I'm sure they were moving more because they were drinking that coffee. They only eat what's shown on screen. If the Gilmore Girls only ate what we actually see them eat, maybe they would be this skinny. Like, honestly, she's eating cereal piece by piece. The Gilmore Girls may be the type of slender girl that boasts about how they eat so much and they never gain weight, but actually they don't eat as much as they claim to eat. Or this would be the case if not all the other characters in the show drilled into our heads as well that they are so mesmerized by how much they can eat. They are skinny but unhealthy. I think that the main thing that everyone thinks about when they look at the Gilmore Girls diet is that there's no way someone could eat that type of food and that much food without suffering any consequences, which they don't. But in real life, you would have at least something happen to your body, even if you don't gain weight. We talked about this in my video, Can You Be Overweight and Healthy? You don't need to be overweight visibly to be unhealthy, and vice versa. Although the Gilmore Girls are thin, it doesn't mean that they're necessarily healthy. It may be that the Gilmore Girls are just predisposed to having their fat stored internally. So it could be that that fat is there, but it's hugging their organs. If their fat is stored as visceral fat, they would have a heap of health risks and adverse effects that they would suffer with down the line sometime. But that would not be visible outwardly. However, we never really see them go to the doctor for any regular checkups, so there's no way for us to know. Well, they just buy a lot of food one day and then eat everything as leftovers. This stems from one of the episodes where Grandpa Richard comes to visit them.
Lorelai, you cannot order all of that food. You're teaching your daughter wastefulness and gluttony.
Dad, we do this all the time. We order way too much and then we eat like a third of it and live off the leftovers for a week and a half. It's a finely honed system.
Personally, I completely understand the appeal of movie night, having different foods, lots of choice, but we know for a fact that they don't just have those leftovers through the week. They go to Luke's for meals countless times. Their fridge is almost always empty. Yes, they do have leftovers sometimes, but there's an episode where Lorelai is cleaning the fridge.
4 slices pepperoni pizza from Tuesday? Last Tuesday?
Tuesday in the not too distant past.
Toss it.
Well, if the food spoiled, it means that they didn't eat it in time. So that means that they don't even finish their leftovers sometimes, and they must be getting their meals from somewhere else. And now we go to the bit that everyone's waiting for. What did the actresses eat in real life? Alexis Bledel is quite private, as in that there's not many interviews that I could find of hers, which is commendable. But in the show, there are just times where you see that she's not interested at all in eating the food that Rory has to eat. And I feel like that tells us the truth, which is that even if you have a naturally fast metabolism, which I believe Alexis does, you still don't look like that by eating like a Gilmore Girl. All we know from Alexis' diet and exercise is that she only started working out allegedly when she filmed the first Sisterhood film, which was in 2005, and she was 24 years old. Which probably means that that's when she started to notice maybe her metabolism start to decline slightly, which would make sense in her mid-20s. And in regards to food, all I could find were some very brief quotes stating that she really likes healthy, organic, local ingredients, that she cooks most of her meals at home, but that she still goes out for drinks, and if she craves a pizza, she'll go out for pizza. So it seems like a pretty much balanced way of eating. I will say that cooking at home is one of the best tips for if you're trying to lose weight or at least keep your figure. Not only you know everything that's going into your food, I at least feel better when I eat something that I made and that tastes good. It's like a personal accomplishment. I don't know. I cook most of my meals at home. But I mean, at the same time, if you are craving pizza or you want to go out for drinks with your friends, food and drink is such an important part of social life that, you know, you have to be flexible. On this to say that it sounds pretty reasonable and realistic that she does eat like that, but again, we don't have that many details. I'm not going to make something up just for the sake of it, so that's all the information we have on Alexis. Now moving to Lorelai, there is more information that I could find on Lauren Graham and her diet and exercise. So starting strong, according to her, she's been on her diet since she was 11. Honestly, this is so sad to read. She says that the women in her family struggle a lot with weight, so she's been on her diet pretty much her whole life. She says that she finds that the less she thinks about food, the happier she is and the better she can adhere to a diet. On a surface level, it makes sense because if you obsess over food, you're not going to be happy probably. And the more you obsess over it, the more you want it, funny enough. So it's more likely that you're going to fail your diet if you obsess over food, which usually happens if you're restricting yourself too much. Then she says that she found that she doesn't really like variety that much. She likes to have the same things over and over again. Now, what I'm going to say obviously is not directed at Lauren because no one on the internet can diagnose anyone and only a doctor knows the particulars about someone's health and is able to talk about any conditions. So this is not to Lauren, but I want to say that it is very common for people who are on diets all the time and people who have orthorexia particularly to stick to the same meals over and over because they're safe. Safe as in they have the same calories all the time and they don't need to worry or stress about what if they change one ingredient and then everything's different. Now, does this mean that eating the same meals all the time is always unhealthy or problematic? Not at all. Depends on why you're doing it. It's very common to see fit people or people who go to the gym have the same meal prep for weeks on end. Usually that is because they know that those meals have the same macros all the time, the same calories and what they need to be able to build muscle and meet their goals. This may or may not be problematic. Depends if they're doing it because they just don't want to be bothered to calculate macros or come up with new recipes all the time, or because they're afraid that they're going to derail their progress if they eat something else. There's also people that are just lazy cooks or not cooks and they just eat the same things over and over because they just don't know how to cook anything else. I want to mention, however, that eating a monotonous diet is not particularly good or healthy if the meals are not balanced. If the meals you are eating are lacking in certain nutrients, you may develop nutrient deficiencies. Aside from this, if your diet is part of a particular fitness goal of yours, eating a monotonous diet may make it harder to stick with your plan if you get bored of your meals. It depends on the person, and only a doctor can tell you if your particular case is a problem or not. Now, going back to Lauren, trigger warning, we're going to be talking about calories. So if you don't want to hear about that, please go to this timestamp right here. So going into Lauren's daily diet, for breakfast she eats a burrito with a tortilla wrap, 3 to 4 egg whites, and 1 slice of low-fat cheese. She also makes sure to drink about 8 glasses of water a day to stay hydrated. Lauren's diet reportedly was between 1600 to 1700 calories a day, but the meal plan I found was way below this, so I tried to make up to the total daily calories by adding some pieces of fruit as snacks during the day. For exercise, she's a very active lady, unlike Lorelai. She runs, she jumps on the trampoline, she does Pilates, she goes to spinning classes, she does everything. And I really appreciate the variety because I find it very boring to do the same exercise over and over all the time. So I decided to go for a run. I'm trying to get a little bit more active myself, so I pushed myself from previous sessions to run 5K, and I did, so that was a very proud moment for me. As a snack, she has an Atkins bar. An Atkins bar is pretty much any bar that's high in protein and low in carbs, so I have that. She says she loves Japanese food, so she eats lots of lean protein and vegetables. For lunch, it's fish with a big green salad, and because I needed to add up to my total calories, and she says she likes quinoa and brown rice, for lunch I added quinoa. In the afternoon, she has 2/3 of a cup of cottage cheese. And finally, for dinner, I got to use my little steamer. You know I love my bamboo steamer, but I may need to upgrade because my steamer is so tiny. I can only fit like 1 broccoli at a time. So dinner was steamed vegetables and fish, and I added some brown rice as well, some soy sauce, and that's it. That was actually pretty yummy. By the way, I love making these videos because I always learn something new or some new way to put food together. Maybe everyone knows this, but I didn't know this. If you add rice vinegar to your steamed vegetables, they taste so yummy. In summary, on this day I did this diet, I was a little bit stressed, and I think I still underate from Lauren's daily calories that I should be eating, which is not good because I ran, I did good, and then I didn't nourish myself. So that wasn't good. But even for Lauren, she's much taller than me. I'm so small, you guys, you don't even know. She's much taller than me, and for her height and her weight, she could easily eat another 500 calories a day without gaining weight. The 1600 to 1700 calories would make her actively lose weight. Maybe that's just what she ate when she was actively on a diet, but if she was maintaining, she didn't need to be on this caloric deficit. In terms of the diet itself, it seems like a pretty standard diet meal plan, as in we have a lot of volume eating, lots of vegetables which don't have lots of calories, you have a good amount of protein, and you have fiber, so that helps you feel full. She also adds oil to her meals, which I don't know if I showed here. For this level of activity, I still think it's a bit too low, but at least it gives you a nice perspective of what the actresses ate in real life and what the Gilmore Girls ate, because you're not seeing a broccoli in Lorelai's plate ever. Now we're diving into Amy Sherman Palladino and the writing of Gilmore Girls. Amy Sherman Palladino, or ASP as I'm going to call her and everyone seems to call her, is the writer of Gilmore Girls, along with other people, but we'll focus on her. She denies that her shows need to have any messaging.
And I don't do message shows. I don't give a who you learn your life from. Someone said, oh God, I hope we don't see the eating disorder show. You won't, because I don't give a flying f about that.
I think the reason why so many people wonder what the meaning of food in the Gilmore Girls is mainly related to the fact that there's no explanation. And you could say there's no explanation. They just wrote 2 characters that really like to eat. I feel like what ASP is trying to say is that she just wants to be able to write characters who just are the way they are, and they're doesn't need to be any meaning behind that, which I totally get. But just because you don't intend for something to have consequences, does that mean that you can just wash off your hands of responsibility in case it does? And second, ASP and everyone else knows that the obsession with food on Gilmore Girls is not just a quirk that's in the background somewhere. I feel like ASP's lack of interest in portraying a message is a little bit contradicted by the rest of the characters in the show, because, well, if they were just girls that like to eat, you could just show them eat a lot and not say anything about it. But the characters themselves recognize they are champions because they eat a lot, and they're able to eat a lot. They eat more than the guys, and the guys recognize that they are champs because they eat more than them. So if it's not supposed to have any meaning, why do we talk about it all the time? Even on multiple episodes, Luke calls them out that the way they eat is not healthy and that one day they'll suffer the consequences.
You did, didn't you? You used baked chips and low-fat cheese. Oh, the trust. Luke, how are we gonna make it if you're constantly trying to keep me healthy?
Fine, forget it. Diet 60.
Bring me a donut while I wait.
They just brush it off, and spoiler alert, they never face any consequences. Plus, the obsession with food on the Gilmore Girls has a fandom of itself. There are cookbooks of everything they ate in the show, and there is a food log online with every single food they ate during all the episodes. And we know ASP is very well aware of this because she doubled down in the revival.
We ordered Chinese, Greek, and Italian food last night. And hot dogs. Ugh, last night's a blur.
So very quickly, we understand that there is in fact a message behind the food in Gilmore Girls, no matter how subliminal it is. And I can already see some of you in the comments about to type, but what about the Pop-Tart dilemma? The Pop-Tart dilemma does seem to contradict what I just talked about, right? It does provide the perfect explanation as to why they eat the way they eat, why Lorelai raised Rory by having pizza leftovers. For those of you who may not be aware, the Pop-Tart dilemma is a monologue that Lorelai has in the late seasons.
I can remember the first time I had a Pop-Tart, and I knew my mother would recoil at the very idea of me having a Pop-Tart. I could just picture her. A Pop-Tart? The Pop-Tart tasted like freedom and rebellion and independence.
So her dilemma is, does she like junk food because she likes it, or does she like it just because her mom hates it? It provides the perfect closure, right? Because it explains perfectly that the way Lorelai eats is to rebel against what her parents are like, because all her life she's just trying to be not like her mom. But here's a little bit of insight of what was happening behind the scenes with the writing of the show. ASP is the creator and writer of the show up until season 6. In season 6, there was some disagreements with the studio. That's why we end up season 6 with some really frustrating moments, because word on the street is that the writers were really pissed off and they just wanted to sabotage everything for the writers that came up next, which is chef's kiss move. Knowing all of this, I think all I can say is that the writers that came up next, the mess they were left to fix, they did the best they could, to be honest. But it also means that the Pop-Tart dilemma, which we hear in season 7, was not written by ASP, the original writer of the show. So I do think that in season 7 there are a few things that tell us that the new writers were trying to put some more seriousness in the situation. We get the Pop-Tart dilemma, which explains why they eat the way they eat. Grandpa Richard has a heart attack, which is much more serious than the angina he had early on in the series. It does seem to provide us with some sort of responsibility and consequence, as in, if Lorelai's father is struggling with his heart health, what can we say about her? Like, she doesn't eat healthy. Like, she should see some kind of consequence in that. But unfortunately, the show then gets cancelled after season 7, so we never get to know what could have been until the Netflix revival. And then the revival is written by ASP again, so any kind of work that the season 7 writers were trying to do just gets scrapped. And finally, we need to talk about product placement. This is the first thing that I noticed on the series, but because I didn't see anyone have the same theory as me, I kept it to the end, and we'll see if my speculations ring a bell with anyone. We were just talking about the Pop-Tart dilemma. And if you just wondered, wait, how much did Kellogg's pay to have Lorelai have an existential crisis over a Pop-Tart? Well, Congratulations, you just spotted capitalism. Product placement is a very common way for shows to make money outside of ad breaks. In some shows, you'll notice that as we approach the end of the season, product placement increases because it is used as a way to make up for lost budget or running out of budget. It is also a very cost-effective marketing strategy for the brands because, well, here we are 15 to 20 years later talking about Pop-Tarts that appeared in a show in 2006. Product placement can take many forms, from the cheapest one, which may be just the product appearing in the scene somewhere with the brand clearly visible, to the most expensive forms where the name of the brand or the product is clearly written into the actor's dialogue and they say the name of the brand out loud. The best, most excellent example I can think of this is the episode from Friends where Monica is trying to replicate the secret cookie recipe from Phoebe's grandma, Nestlé Toulouse.
What was her name? Nestlé Toulouse. Nestle Toll House? Phoebe, is this the recipe? Yes!
To write the punchline of the entire episode to be a product placement requires genius writing. I hope everyone recognizes that. And also, I can only imagine the amount of money that they got to be able to integrate this ad into their episode like this. As we spoke in the beginning of this video, there is an interesting evolution of the Gilmore Girls and the food that appears in their episodes. In the beginning, there are rare instances where you see vegetables in their kitchen or they're eating a pretty sad salad, I must say, and they don't look happy about it. There's also an episode where she just grabs a bag of salad, drops a bunch of dressing in there, shakes it, and calls it a meal. But loose lettuce and apples don't pay the bills, so we do see an interesting development in the product placement as the show goes on. Dosey's Market is, of course, the prime place where it's easy to put product placement in. I mean, it's a grocery store. You go in there, there's products on shelves with brands clearly visible. It's just a very quick way to make a buck for the showrunners. Then there's the evolution of the reception desk at the end. First, they don't have a computer, and then they get a computer. Then we have this awkward scene of Lorelai and Michelle just arguing about a glitch in the system, which it's so obvious is just to show the logo on the computer monitor. The scene contributes nothing to the plot, but it paid the bills. And you know that Apple clearly cuts the paycheck later on because there's an episode where we have the same monitor but with a flower vase in front. You know that flower vase isn't just there, it's there because they don't give free advertising, honey. So product placement can take many shapes and forms and with any kind of product really, but I do feel like there's a relationship, a trend if you will, of the kind of food that we see the girls eat in the show and the type of product placement that we see. As the show progresses, we do see them committing more to the idea that they only eat junk food and vegetables are evil. The jokes naturally follow that path. So we have a trend like this of them eating more junk food. And in the same direction, we have the same progression of brands of junk food appearing in the show. The parallel trend in these two factors really makes a difference because one makes the other easier. If you believe the Gilmore Girls really do eat like that, then it feels natural that they talk about Pop-Tarts and Twinkies. I mean, that's what they eat. It doesn't feel weird. If you heard Mrs. Kim talk about some brand of frozen pizza, it would feel really weird because that's just not what her character is associated with, and you would be like, ugh, another ad. Great. Viewers hate obvious advertising. It's also worth mentioning that most of these advertisements or product placements that they seep into their dialogue only come from the Gilmore Girls themselves. Because they're the cool girls. They have junk food, but they don't get fat. And the thing that I really thought was messed up is that you never see any of the average looking or overweight characters have this product placement in their dialogue. Why do you think that is? If the brands are associated with the Gilmore Girls, there's this fun, hip, cool girl vibe that is associated with the brand. I mean, it's a positive message. But if you have an overweight character talk about tater tots, well, if I buy tater tots, I'll become overweight. That's not very appealing. And I don't know about you, but I think that's really messed up. So if we think about the character development in the show, in relation to this product placement, it's actually a pretty genius move because you do grow to believe that this is how the characters are. So bring on the product placement. We can have them talk about any kind of junk food brand because it will fit in and it will make sense and the viewers will believe it and will be in turn influenced by it. All that brands care about is having a positive association with their product. We already talked about this before, but think about all the episodes where Rory introduces junk food brands to Emily and Richard.
What is all this?
It's lunch.
I had no idea so many different kinds of foods came on sticks. I'll try this.
Orange Julius.
A classic.
Oh my, that's very good.
But the point is, in all of these scenes, there's always a positive vibe going on. We know that the Gilmore Girls and the grandparents have attrition, but the scenes where they seem to share junk food seem to be the scenes where they connect the most. As a viewer, they were also my favorite scenes in a way, which when you think about it, you're just building a positive connotation with junk food. And I think this is the point where we need to remember and really talk about that. The main viewership of the Gilmore Girls back in the day were teenage girls. Watching the show as an adult, I feel like I am able much more than when I was a teenager to distance myself a little bit from the messaging and the advertising and all of that. I'm sorry to any teenagers watching, but teenagers are much more impressionable and susceptible to marketing tactics, even though in our generations it is recognized that we are all much more aware of advertising and those kinds of influences than the generations before us. I found a study from 2001 that was already looking at the targeting of teenagers for advertising. It goes on to explain that for teens, an advertisement or other promotional technique will not mean anything on television or in any other medium if it does not connect with who they are, their image of self, or who they aspire to become. The study goes on to explain how product placement is being written into the dialogue of shows to connect the products more deeply with the characters that are being played in the shows. This technique can again help to encourage teens to believe that what they are seeing is reality and is right for them to consume. I think this topic could go on and on forever, but I just really wanted to bring it into this because it was the one thing that I noticed when I started wondering, what is the meaning of them eating like this? What is the purpose? And then I started being bombarded with Pop-Tarts. I just started to connect the dots, and it's just a theory that even if the characters were not written with the main purpose of being a viable means of marketing promotion and making money for the show, it sure didn't hurt. And I think I've waffled on for way too much. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye!